Hello, everyone, and welcome to Africa Fire Mission's weekly virtual training session. My name is Mike. I'm the programs director here at Africa Fire Mission. So happy you took time out of your busy schedules to join us for this week's virtual training session. This week, we're joined again by Adelino Paulino from South Africa. He's going to be continuing on with last week's discussion. We talked about overhaul and touched on investigating the fire just a little bit. We're going to dive deeper into that with this week's training. Before we get started with this week's training, I'm going to pass things over to Jose Nanjiri. He is Africa Fire Mission's Fire Safety Officer, and he's going to share a few words of encouragement with us.
Thank you so much, Chief Mike. I truly appreciate you. And also, Adelino, thank you so much for coming in today. Again, we appreciate your knowledge and your wisdom of what you're about to share. Well, ladies and gentlemen, today is Labor Day. I'm actually at home today, and it's one of those days that you work from home, even though it's a holiday. And you see, firefighters don't go on break. Yeah, we get the job done. We're the people who stand in the gap because we signed that oath. And today's encouragement is based on labor. And I'm being prompted to go in the book of Psalms chapter 127, verse 1. It reads, "Unless the Lord builds a house, the work of the builders is wasted. Unless the Lord protects a city, guarding it with sentries will do no good." Since today is Labor Day, may your labor actually be fruitful to the community that you serve. Even your labor can be futile if you do not put yourself in training, if you do not work as a team, if you are just working as a loner, that your labor will actually not be fruitful. Yeah. And also, even as you start your day every day, make sure that you put God first. Make sure that you pray for your community, that there'll be no accidents or little accidents. Yeah. So that even you can engage into matters of fire prevention and prevention awareness conversations. With that, I wish you the best, even as you serve your communities, wherever you are. Thank you so much, Chief Mike. Back to you.
Thanks, Jose. We always appreciate you sharing those encouraging words with us and all the work that you do to assist firefighters throughout Africa as we develop the fire service. A few administrative items before we get started with today's class. If you stick around for at least 70% of today's training, which is usually about 40 or 45 minutes, you will receive a certificate of attendance for today's class. Your screen name for Zoom there is the name that'll go on that certificate, so if you need to make an adjustment to that, please do so now. If you can't stay on for enough time today, we'll post a message in the chat showing you where you can reach our Google Drive that has a recording of today's topic, along with all the other trainings that we've done so far this year. If you watch a YouTube video, answer a few questions about the training, you can receive a certificate of attendance for those as well. When we get completed with today's training, at the top of the hour, we'll pass things back over to Jose for tea time. Tea time is a time where you can ask questions about today's topic or discuss anything else that may be on your mind in the fire service or what you've got going on in your personal life. So I invite you all to stick around. Do now, I'm going to pass things over to Adelino to get us started with today's training. Take it away, sir.
Good afternoon and good morning from everyone there, that side. Thanks for giving me another chance and standing in for Mr. Richard. And I just saw a great opportunity to come the second time to come and teach again. So today's lesson will be again same but upfront, and I hope we will enjoy it and ask questions after the lesson so that we can learn more. The things that we do in the fire department, so we just refresh on it. Thanks guys for coming in, and joining the Zoom meeting. So I'm just gonna log in. Okay, very good morning, guys. Good afternoon, good evening to everyone. So, okay, today's chapter will be presented by me through the sharing of Mr. Patrick or Mr. Richard. Okay, today's presentation will be on protecting fire scene evidence. As we understand that most of the fire scene evidence, most of the time, we as firefighters, we're not doing that in most of the times. We're no more doing that. And we are so like dependent on fire investigators to come and do the job. But we are losing all those momentum. So I hope everybody's gonna learn some of the things. Why should we protect fire scene evidence? And what did I do now? Okay. Our specific objective for today will be describe sign and indication of incendiary fires, summarize important observation to be made en route, after arriving at the scene and during the firefighting operation. Discuss firefighting conduct and statement at the fire scene. Explain firefighter responsibilities after the fire. Discuss protecting and preserving evidence. So determining cause of the fire. In most jurisdictions, the fire chief has the legal responsibility for determining the fire cause and origin of the fire. Delegate this authority to the fire officer and firefighters at the scene. So if the fire chief is not available, he can delegate these authorities to the fire chief or the fire officer or the firefighters. If he delegates to the firefighter in case the fire officer is not available, and then those evidence that are found on the scene, they can be given to the fire investigator so that the fire investigator can go investigate more and be filed up. Proper training and enable firefighters to recognize and collect important information. First arriving firefighters are in position to observe unusual conditions that may indicate an incendiary fires. So proper training of the firefighters, because if you don't have investigation training under investigation, so you won't be able to know how to observe the investigation or how to do the investigation. So it's important that when you do your firefighter one, these things this chapter is also in the firefighter one. When you did your firefighter one, it will give you more knowledge, because the moment you carry on doing the same thing, it will give you more knowledge that at any fire scene, you have to do your observation to see what bent the building. So the first arriving firefighters in the position to observe unusual conditions that may indicate an incendiary device. The moment you see that there was an incendiary device that was used in the burning of the house, make sure that you report it immediately to your supervisor. First arriving firefighters should note the vehicle and people present in the area, status of doors and windows, evidence of forced entry by anyone other than firefighters, contents of the room, indication on unusual fire behavior, or more than one point of origin. So there will be lots of vehicles or people present, especially bystanders at the fire scene. The status of the door must be checked every time so that you are able to know that you are the first person or you are the second person to break in through it. Because if you are the second person, then you know that there was a burglary inside or something happened again, you understand? Or an arson that occurred. So the content of the room must be observed at all times. Observation en route. When you're en route, you observe the time of the day, weather and natural hazards, barriers, people leaving the scene. So it's important that the barriers must be observed. Sometimes you find that they are striking or they are protesting on near that house that's burning. Then you know that no, this building was burned by the protesters because the road is blocked or there's a lot of barriers on the road. People leaving the scene. So when you see that people are leaving the scene or running away from the scene, then you know that, okay, there was an explosion because now you are en route to that place. Then you know that maybe there's a big hazard of an explosion that has occurred, or there's an odor that is coming out of the building that is suffocating the bystanders. Then you have to observe all those kind of things. Time of arrival, an extent of fire, wind direction and velocity, doors or windows locked or unlocked, and location of the fire. Make sure that your observation goes beyond through that, so that you must be able to know. Once you observe these things here, then you know that where to start and where to end. Container or cans, then you get your burglary tools and familiar faces. Sometimes you find the moment you arrive, upon your arrival on the scene, you'll find burglary tools. Then you know that, okay, there was an arson here, there was burglary here in this house. That's why they burn it. So the moment you find those, don't touch them, leave them as they are, report them to your superiors, supervisor. Then you find familiar faces. Familiar faces are sometimes, most of the times, important because you don't know that last week or this week or the week before last, you were on the scene and then the same face was on the same scene. And then you ask yourself, how come every fire this guy is in the same scene? Then whatever you do is you report to your supervisor give it to the police, to the law enforcement. The law enforcement takes that guy through and then investigate him or ask him question. How come are you all at all the scenes? And then he gives information, whatever it is. Sometimes you find out it is him. He just want to see the fire trucks. How do they respond and everything, you understand? So you must observe those kind of things. Observation during arrival, during firefighting operation, unusual order, abnormal behavior of fire when water is applied, obstacles hindering firefighting. So, like I said, unusual order. Sometimes you find that the house was built due to with petrol and everything, different kind of chemicals. Upon you entering the building, before you put on your SCBA, you'll be able to smell it. Then you know that, okay, this fire was caused by this kind of chemicals. So when you enter inside the building, even in your face piece, you cannot smell the odor, but you can smell it a little bit, but not that. So it's important to observe it. Abnormal fire behavior when water is applied, observe that kind of stuff, and observe obstacles hindering firefighting, especially the moment you enter the door. You will find out that there's a sofa that's blocking the door, or there's a bed that's blocking the door. Observe that, because sometimes you find that they were fighting in the building, in the house, or a burglar came in and then tried to looking for whatever he was looking, could not find it, and then burned the house, or the house was burned on purpose. So those are the important observations that every firefighter must observe. Incendiary devices, trailers, structural alteration, and fire patterns. So sometimes, most of the time, sometimes incendiary devices, you don't find it in most of them, but it's in some buildings you find incendiary devices that can hinder a person. So the moment you find that, you see it, you report it. Sometimes it can be a booby trap or anything, or a bomb. And then trailers, most of the people there, they pack a lot of clothes in their cupboard, in their drawers, or in their cupboards, or outside the cupboards. Those are the things that makes the fire to spread. And then they create trailers because of the spread of the fire through the trailers. In structural alteration and fire patterns, it's important to know that if you see how fire has burned, if you know the types of fire patterns, how fire burns, then you'll be able to identify. Now, if you find out that they threw a petrol bomb on top of the house and then it started burning from the roof to down, then you'll be able to know that this type of fire patterns is from the top, not from the bottom. Then that's all the things that you have to observe upon arrival when you are doing your firefighting. Observation: heat intensity, availability of documents, fire detection and protection system, intrusion alarms, and location of fire. So the heat intention, it will give you the observation that this building has been burning for a long time, or the room has been burning for a long time. It will be that hot that when you enter, you can feel it in your skin. Then you know that this building has been burning for a long time, or it was burned with different types of chemicals. And availability of documents. Sometimes when it is arson, what happens to the owner of the house, the building, they take all their documents because of the insurance. They burn the house, they take their documents and hold them with them so that they must not burn. So observe those kind of stuff. The moment you observe that there are no documents, there are no pictures in the wall, then you know that, okay, it's incendiary. Because in most of the time, once you find out that it was an arson, you don't have to talk to your firefighter, just report it to your supervisor. Your supervisor will report it to the investigator. And most of the time you'll find the alarm system is broken down. And then that's how you will know that, okay, the house burned because the alarm system was down. That's why the call came in late. So somebody broke the alarm system and then they burned the house. Those are the observations that you have to go through it. And then the moment you observe it, then you know what are you dealing with. Personal possession, household items, equipment or inventory, and business records. All these items are the items that have to go through observation when you are inside the building. The moment you don't find any of these, and then you know that it's an arson that was made by the owner or by different. If you don't find it, you know that it's by the owner. Business records, if the owner does not know that the house is burned down, Then there was a burglary inside. Who was looking for business records? And then you know that it must be reported to your superior or your supervisor. Remember that when you're reporting, when you're finding out any observation, don't talk to your fellow firefighters. Make sure that you only speak, give information to your supervisor, so that your supervisor can deal with it with the investigator. Because the moment you talk with your fellow colleagues, what's going to happen? Your fellow colleagues is not going to hold his breath and say, let me hold. He's going to talk to other colleagues, and the other colleagues going to talk to the bystanders who know them. And then information goes, and then what's going to end up in the newspaper or in the internet? It's wrong, negative information. And the negative information are the information that is going to take you to court or take you to jail, because you will be now part of the investigation. Conducting and statement at the fires at the scene. Firefighters should obtain as much information as possible. Owner or sorry guys, owners or occupants of the property should be allowed to talk freely. So when you are at the scene, obtain as much information as possible by hearing or by just searching. When you're doing your firefighting, in conjunction doing your investigating and getting all the evidence. That's how you're gonna obtain your information. So the owner he can talk freely at the fire scene. So the moment the owner is talking freely, he's giving out information. Sometimes the owner, they are in shock, and then they'll end up telling you that, oh, the house was burned by me. Then when your supervisor doing the investigations or getting all the evidences, what happens? The evidence comes and shows that this information that owner gave and this information that we got, they don't match. So let us see what's going to happen. And then they stick to the information, because when the owner comes in the state, in the positive mind, because he was on shock, he will end up changing his statement. And then once the investigation get released early, so it's gonna be upside down, it's gonna crash again. It's gonna crash, and then once they crash, it's gonna be a long investigation for years to come. And then the owner is obviously can win sometimes, or the owner can lose. Firefighters should not attempt to interrogate a potential arson suspect unless trained and authorized. Firefighters should refrain from expressing personal opinion. So if you are trained and authorized to interrogate, you can interrogate as a potential suspect. You can interrogate him, but if you are trained. But if you are not trained on it, you don't do it. You give it to the people who are trained, like the inspector, and then the inspector can inform the police to come to get him so that he can be interrogated. And firefighters should be refrained from expressing their opinion, because the moment you express your opinion is the moment that you put yourself in trouble. So whatever it is that you encounter on the scene, whatever evidence that you find on the scene, don't express it outly on the other firefighters. Keep it to you, give information to the supervisor. The supervisor notes it, the supervisor gives information to the investigator. After the investigator arrives, firefighters should make statements only to this individual, only to the investigators. unless the supervisor is not there, then you can give information to the investigator. If the officer is there, you give the information to the officer gives information to the investigator. Because you cannot give information while you are still doing your firefighting to the investigator and then you jump your officer. So most of the time, the investigator can always ask the firefighters to help him do the investigation. That's when you give now information upon the encountering all those evidence that you find on that time, not when you are doing your firefighting, the time that the investigator is there, then you can give it. Conducting and statement at the scene. Public statement regarding fire cause should be made only after the investigator and ranking fire officer have agreed to it, its accuracy and validity, have given permission for it to be released. So if the fire investigator and the officer have given the validity on the evidence that they've come to a conclusion that the evidence that the problem that happened or the thing that burned the house is being concluded upon it, and then they can release it to the firefighter. This is what happened. And then the firefighter now can freely release it to whoever it is, because now the investigation is accomplished. And then you are given a permission to do it. Responsibilities after a fire. Firefighters should report their observation to their supervisors. Firefighters should not discuss their observation with other crew members. Improperly done overhaul operation can be detrimental to the investigation. So on those 2 points, I already said it. Don't discuss anything with other crew members until the investigation is done. So improperly done overhaul operation could hinder the investigation, because you have to start from the origin of the fire, and then on the origin of the fire, you don't use a lot of water, because the moment you're going to use a lot of water, you are hindering with the evidence. So make sure that you fight the fire on the origin of the fire well, so that the evidence could be secured, because that's where the evidence is going to come out. And the other rooms still can do the same, because you don't know how was the fire burned. Maybe it was burned in sequence in different rooms. So by every time, make sure that on overhaul, you don't use a lot of waters. Just use a little bit, just to extinguish the burning ashes and everything. Fire department has the authority to deny access to any building. Why? During the firefighting operation, for a reasonable length of time after fire suppression is terminated. So access is denied. Even the owner must be denied an access, because once there's a barrier line, the owner is there, must be denied access, because we know that it's a crime scene already. Once the building is burning, it's a crime scene. No unauthorized person must go through the barrier line. So everybody must be denied. After fire extinguishment, the officer and investigator can put in, like especially when it's burning during the night, they can authorize the security company to come and stand in for the night in order to safeguard the evidence inside the building, so that nobody can go in. And then, because the moment the house is left like that, and then the investigator was not yet there, He cannot do anything because now everybody was in, and then the evidence is tampered on. If an investigator is not immediately available, the fire department or other law enforcement authority should keep control of the premises until all evidence has been collected. Make sure that every time you got a house fire, make sure that the investigator must be notified so that he can prepare himself and come to do the investigation. But most of the time, most of the cases, make sure that law enforcement is there to make sure that all these bystanders, they must be kept away, because the moment the bystanders are not well controlled, they are going to come near. Some of them, they'll want to get in and see what's happening, especially the family members, because an investigation, you can like do it any day if the investigator is there. So the most important thing is to keep the families away so that the investigation can go perfectly. Because as a firefighter, remember, and there's another thing, remember that when you're fighting fires and then you're doing your investigation, make sure that your gloves are on. Because the moment you try to take off your glove and then move all the evidences around, you are going to be linked with that information because your fingerprint are there. Because the moment the investigator take all those evidences to the lab, they are going to check for the fingerprint. The moment they find your fingerprint, now you will be linked as a firefighter. You will be linked as a suspect on the house fire. And then once you are linked, you'll be in for a long time and you can lose your job for that. Once all fire personnel leaves the scene, a search warrant or written consent to search will be required to re-enter the building, the premises. So a search warrant will be taken from the fire investigator is the one who will be responsible to give a search warrant, especially if the owner ends up getting his own private investigator. He cannot just go in the building and do his investigation. He must go to the law enforcement investigator and then ask for permission or get a warrant, a search warrant for himself, so that once he got a written warrant, he can go and produce it to the guys or to the security who is standing there or who's guarding the premises, and then he can be able to get in and go and do his investigation. After his investigation is done, he reports back, and then he can go and do his investigation at his lab. So it's much important that the building, the premises is always secured. Fire personnel should not allow anyone to enter a fire scene without the investigator's permission. The premises can be secured and protected in several ways by organizing security, or the police can stand there for them. If they are not available, and then you got a lot of firefighters can stand there also and then guard the premises. But I recommend the security personnel and the police personnel. Cordoning can be accomplished with rope or special design fire and police tape. Everybody knows that. It's either you can use a police tape or a rope to secure the premises. Protecting and preserving evidence. Important. Protect evidence by keeping it untouched and undisturbed until investigator has arrived. Do not gather or handle evidence unless it is absolutely necessary in order to preserve it. Do not touch or move the evidence, because the moment you touch and move the evidence, what's going to happen? Now you are hindering with the evidence or investigation. The investigation will be filthy. So it will take time for them to determine which material was where, so that it can be well investigated. Protecting and preserving. If firefighters handle or procure evidence, they become a link in the chain of custody for the evidence. Evidence must remain undisturbed except when absolutely necessary for the extinguishment of the fire. Like I told you that if you hinder with the evidence, you will become a suspect, or you'll be linked to that evidence, and then you can stand trials and go to jail for that. Firefighter must avoid trampling over possible evidence and obstacles, obliterating it. The same precaution applied to the excessive use of water may help avoid similar unsatisfactory result, especially when you're doing your overhaul. It's important that you don't use excessive water, because you are gonna hinder with the evidence and then destroy evidences. Human footprint and tires marks must be protected. Use cardboard boxes in order to protect the footprint and the tire marks. Protecting and preserving evidence. It is important to protect completely or partially burnt papers found in the furnace, stove, or fireplace by immediately closing dampers and other openings. Leave charged documents found in the containers. Don't move any charged documents found in the containers, because those charged documents are the documents which will be able to help with the investigation in the premises. After evidence has been collected, properly collected by an investigator, debris may be removed. Remove charged materials to prevent the possibility of rekindle and to help reduce smoke damage. So the unburned material can be separated from the debris and be cleaned. The same thing that we did on the overhaul, they can be separated and cleaned up so that the evidence can be well observed. Okay, summary. On summary is everything from top to bottom that I said, but let me give you a little bit of summary there. As a firefighter, one of the most important responsibility is to avoid disturbing or destroying evidence while fighting the fire. In the area of origin, appropriate caution must be used when spraying water, moving debris, and even walking around. Once the area of origin is known, a more thorough investigation can be conducted to determine the exact cause of the fire. As a firefighter, it may be necessary to determine the cause of the fire. More likely, firefighters may be assigned to assist their supervisor or a fire investigator in making that determination. If the fire origin and cause investigation reveals evidence of arson, the property becomes a crime scene and must be treated as one, as always. Firefighter must cooperate fully with whoever is assigned to investigate the crime. Any question? Thank you very much for attending the class, guys. Highly appreciate it. And thanks, Mr. Carl.
All righty, thank you very much, Adelino. At this point in time, we're going to open the floor up to some questions. If you've got a question, you can place it in the chat. You can use the raise hand feature. You can unmute and ask your question.
Wow, 45 minutes. I think I was flying, eh? Any question, guys?
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Mustafa, how are you?
I'm good, Mike. How are you?
Very good.
Mine is not actually a question, but I just wanted to commend Adelino for the good presentation. It has been very, very, very good and enlightening, because we as firefighters, we actually know our role just by fighting the fires without actually reserving the fire scene. So it is a helpful lesson indeed. Even though I know it would be very difficult for us Africans, like here in Malawi, the way people behave when there is a fire. Everyone is just free to go inside and try to salvage what they want. So sometimes this may help in removing the evidence, because everyone has the role to play on their own. We don't actually follow the rules of firefighting, because at the fire scene, you find people have their adrenaline levels increased. So they would choose to just behave the same way as they would want to behave, without even regarding the fact that there will be other steps to be taken, like the investigation and finding out any evidences for the purposes of reporting. So this has been very helpful, and I feel we will take a proper measure to make sure that we train other firefighters in the brigade, more especially in our shifts, so that they should be able to know what to do after we fight the fire. It is very important indeed. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Adelino.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Thank you, sir.
That's a great point that you make about basically how do you secure that scene after the fire. You've got folks that you've got maybe the property owner that wants to get back in and try to salvage what they can, or those bystanders that sometimes think that anything that's damaged or involved in an accident or something is up for the taking, right? So
Yeah.
It makes that really important. We see that with your fuel tankers roll over, right? And everybody thinks, there's free fuel. And similar, there's the fire, and well, whatever belongings are still good in there are free for the taking. So that securing it to find that evidence, and then also building that relationship with law enforcement too, so that you have some sort of means of supporting that and furthering that investigative relationship. Those are really important.
Yeah, and sometimes in some cases, what happens is it's good to secure, but when you reach at the scene, because of the call came in late, somebody was, before calling the fire department, he was first taking a video, and then when you reach there, it's late. all the bystanders have hindered with the evidence. There's a lot of footprints. There's a lot of stuff that's been moved. So it becomes so difficult for the fire investigator to do the investigation. That's why it sometimes takes long, even years, takes years, because you find out the resident owner, he or she um, put it on insured the house. So it takes years for the claim to come out.
Yeah, hello, Mustafa here once again. Just for clarification's sake, there was a time when we responded to a fire at a marketplace in our town in Lilongwe, and the shop was on fire. The shop belonging to a foreigner, of course. When we went there, we managed to cordon the area. We managed to start working inside, but we were surprised because the owner was of the shop could not allow us to take him out of the shop so that we do all the work. After even having asked him, is there any area that you want us to focus where you feel there would be some treasures for you? He never explained anything. He was still behind the firefighter, the branchman, wherever he was going, without even putting on his protective gear. So when we finally extinguished the fire completely, he then rose on the counter of the shop and got behind where the baby diapers were burning. There was a carton of money there. So we were like, why did you not want to like reveal that this is the area of focus that we should take in case we want to make sure that your treasures are protected? He said, no, I don't have trust on anyone over my money. So there are scenarios that the owner would not want to leave firefighters work alone because they have some treasures inside the burning building. So these are some of the circumstances that would hinder the fire investigator to find actual evidences of the arsonist or whatsoever might be the cause of the fire. It is really good to put it on paper that we are supposed to do that as professionals, but in most incidences, this does not apply because of the behavior of the victims sometimes. So since it is supposed to be obligated into our service delivery, thank you very much for this because it has given us an insight on how we should be working. But now the question is, if the owner of the building on fire or the owner of the property on fire is resisting, do we have to use force to make sure that they are out of the premises, or we should let them be there?
It's a great question. And a lot of that depends on if there's any kind of local law that governs that. Here in the US, when you call for help and the fire department arrives, we have control of that building until we release it back to the property owner. So that sort of possession of that sort of becomes the fire department's possession until the emergency is mitigated and it's turned back. You that may not be addressed in any kind of law or anything where you're at. The best advice that I can give for that is that you make reasonable efforts to keep everyone at the scene safe. If you have someone that continues to keep going back into that building, you're going to take reasonable means to prevent harm from coming to them, but you're not going to put yourself at undue risk to do that as well. When someone that's insistent on returning inside, that's one of those times when you can pass that over to law enforcement and the police and let them deal with that situation. Along the lines of our topic today as well, the opposite of that situation is one of those indicators that you may be dealing with an incendiary type fire, where if you're at a shop in the market and you're asking the owner, you've put the fire off, and now you're asking the shop owner, show us. You can even come in with us and show us where you stored the money so that we can try to, salvage that for you. And they tell you, well, there's no money here, right? The lack of that as well is another indicator, right? Like obviously, if there's no valuables, that poses the question. Well, your shop caught on fire. There's nothing, you know, there's nothing that would normally cause a fire within your shop, but suddenly your shop's on fire and there was no money. And then, well, did you take it out with you? No, no, right? Great indicator that maybe there's something going on there. Same thing if there's no valuables, or the shop catches fire and you get the fire put off, and you start looking and there's nothing really there. There weren't really any contents in there. Did they remove those contents first? The presence of no valuables, but the fact that the place may have been insured, those are some good indicators that you might be dealing with arson. Any other questions or comments yet before we wrap up the formal portion of our training for the day?
No one.
All right, then. At this point in time, I'll wrap up that official part of our training today with a big thank you to Adelino for coming again. Another great class, 2 in a row. Thank you, sir. Much appreciated. Thanks for taking the time and donating your knowledge so that the rest of us can all learn and grow. A thank you to all of our participants as well. We realize that there's a small expense to this, at least, to get your bundles or whatever you need to do to attend our classes. We really appreciate you taking that time and that expense on yourselves to grow and better be able to provide and serve for your community and your fellow firefighters. With that, I'll wrap things up. Thanks, everybody. We've got plenty of seats in here. Continue to share the links for the training and our Google Drive and all that good stuff, so we can spread as much knowledge as we can. Appreciate you all being here, and we'll see you again next week.